Let's start off by taking a look at the history behind live looping, and I'll also give you some examples at the end of this. So what is live looping? A performance technique that involves recording and layering different musical phrases in real time to create a multi-layered performance by one musician. So this one musician performs and records a phrase, then overdubs another phrase on top of the first one, and then layers another phrase, and so on. This leads to a seamless flow from one phrase to another, and it's all done by this one musician. So that is your typical live looping performance. Now today, live looping can be achieved using digital hardware devices like these guitar-style stompbox pedals or these larger workstation-style loopers. You can also get software options. Specifically, Ableton Live is one we're going to take a look at in depth in this course. But what about before digital technology? How is this done before computers? To understand this, we will have to look at the history of tape machines. So let's rewind to the early 1930s. This is one of the first reel-to-reel tape recorders, the MAGNETOPHON K1, built by AEG in 1932 Germany. The magnetic tape itself was developed by this gentleman, Fritz Pflumer. I'm probably pronouncing that name wrong. Now, he developed this in 1928. He licensed the technology to AEG, who then went on to build the world's first tape recorder. Now, if you already know a little about world history, you should know that 1932 was not a very good time, especially for Germany. The Nazis were ruling Germany, and there was a lot of political tension and economic challenges. In fact, AEG was commissioned to work for the German government, and the magnetophone was used to record and play back Hitler's speeches. Alright, let's move forward to a more serendipitous time when this gentleman, an American Signal Corps soldier, who was primarily an engineer, discovered the magnetophone. He decided to take a few of these machines back with him to United States, and then he demoed the technology to some companies like Ampex, who eventually started manufacturing their own tape recorders. Mullen went on to become Bing Crosby's chief engineer to record his nightly radio shows. It is said that Crosby didn't like live performances and loved the idea of recording the shows so it can be played back after the fact. Now after this, magnetic tape became the standard for recording performances and in studios. Now let's talk about tape looping. Though before I can talk about that, I have to talk about Les Paul, who discovered the sound-on-sound technology for recording multiple parts onto a tape. He basically designed the first multi-track tape recorder. Now all of this was mainly from the standpoint of studio recording. It wasn't used as a live performance tool. But we kind of get close to that with tape echo machines. This is WATKINS-COPICAT, which is a tape echo machine. How it works is that you record onto a tape loop, and since it's a loop, you eventually hear the signal you recorded, so it sounds like an echo. Now people started realizing that this idea of a tape loop doesn't have to be limited to creating that delay or echo effect. Now with these physical tape loops, you could never get things to be precise. You'd have to estimate based on a tempo and the length of the tape how long a musical phrase you could record. So musicians would just play by ear. Alright, now in the next tutorial, we're going to take a look at some of the earliest forms of live looping performed on magnetic tape.